Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Superwoman on a new digital TV channel F15. My name is Heidi Eichinger from the German language edition of Forbes, and on this broadcast, I'm talking to experienced leaders, founders, and executives who share lessons learned to increase diversity in their companies in order to be more productive, more efficient, and hopefully more happy. Today, it's my great pleasure to introduce you to Pascale Rahman. She's Vice President and General Counsel, Europe, Middle East, Asia, and India at Flex, formerly Felxtronics. Pascale is also Vice President and Deputy General Counsel, Global Operations at Flex. So, what's Flex? Flex is a global company which provides design, manufacturing, and supply chain solutions to a large number of diverse industries and end markets. It's headquartered in Singapore and in San Jose, California. And to give you, our viewers, a picture of the size of the company, we're talking about approximately 160,000 employees worldwide and a turnaround of about 20+ billion US dollars. CEO of Flex is a woman, it's Revati Advaiti, which we're very happy about, and we're more happy about for you, Pascale. Thank you that you are taking time just to be with us. Sorry, welcome.
Thank you, Heidi. Thank you.
So, just to start with, Pascale, could you just tell us a little bit about yourself, your professional background, and how you found your way to Flex?
Sure. So I'm of mixed heritage. I'm half French, half Indian. I was born in India. I spent my formative years in the United States. As far as my legal education is concerned, because I'm a lawyer, I took my legal education in France and in the UK. Professionally, I've always worked either in big international law firms or in large industrial manufacturing engineering groups in Europe and the US, but always with a global reach. Mm-hmm. And currently I'm located in Vienna, which is Flex's European headquarters, and I'm loving it. You asked me, how did I get to Flex? Well, Flex is a very fast-paced, diverse global company. And I like to think it's those traits that brought us together.
Mm-hmm. So the company itself was founded in 1969 in Silicon Valley. I do have like a picture in my mind of a garage, but it certainly probably wasn't this way. But just to give our viewers an idea of the huge company today, how it's developed over the decades and adapted business like continuously.
So let me pick up a little bit what you said earlier when you introduced me. And the best way I would describe Flex today, and I will go back in time, is it's a company that designs, innovates, manufactures for some of the largest brands in the world in a host of industries, whether it's automotive, whether it's computing, whether it's telecoms, whether it's medical devices, whether it's industrial goods. Very, very, very diverse. And as you said, we're large. We were last year, 2019, I think we were about $24 billion with, as you said, 160,000 employees and about 100 facilities worldwide. But we come from very humble beginnings in 1969, where it was really a family business that was selling printed circuit boards to companies in Silicon Valley. And that's the connection to San Jose and to Silicon Valley. And over 5 decades now, we've evolved, we've grown, we've diversified. And I'm happy to say that in 2019, we celebrated our 50th anniversary. And one of the big milestones of our 50th anniversary, apart from the size and the growth and the evolution of the company, is that we appointed our first female CEO, who is Revati Advaiti.
I will come back later to this topic, but before, it's just like we are all using as consumers products where like little components of your company are built inside.
Exactly. So, think about your laptop, think about your phones, think about your printers, think about the inside of your car, think about medical devices. Somewhere, somehow, Flex has been involved either in designing, manufacturing, or in the supply chain of those products.
So coming back to you and your profession, what is exactly the job of a general counsel, and especially at Flex, and what are your main areas of responsibility?
So, as you would expect as a lawyer, Heidi, I support with legal services our worldwide operations in a range of areas, whether it's regulatory, whether it's corporate commercial, whether it's litigation, compliance. It's very diverse. But I prefer to describe myself as somebody, I hope, that has a voice, that has a view. And I like to describe myself, or aspire to be, sort of a trusted advisor to our operations worldwide, and bring a perspective through my legal lens, admittedly, but bring a different perspective to weigh in on the decisions, the challenges, the problems, the issues that we face as a global corporation. So general counsel, yes, but I really see myself more than just a functional support. I like to see myself, and I hope to be really contributing to the success of our company.
Could you just give me a more concrete example of what you are talking about when it comes?
Sure. So let me tell you. Let me, for example, let's take a COVID situation. When I said to you that I'm involved in regulatory matters, in COVID, I was very involved with my teams worldwide, trying to interpret the different lockdown, shutdown notices that were coming around the world. And this was happening real time. And it was my role to help understand, interpret, and then communicate and convey to our operations what we could do or not do as a global company during lockdown period, with 160,000 people waiting to know whether they could work or not. So that's one aspect. Another aspect would be, I'm in charge of supporting our global operations. And global operations means that we buy a lot of things to make all the products that we make for our companies and our clients. So I'm involved in understanding the sourcing, the commercial contracting relationships that we have with thousands of suppliers around the world. So that's more of the commercial side of my job. I hope that answers a little bit what you had in mind.
Was it like a positive thing to have like first-hand information about the COVID situation from Singapore, from the Asian market, and getting the information to the United States? I mean,
absolutely. I think in the COVID situation, we became obviously aware of the impact of COVID in China first, because we have a very large footprint there. And with the help of our Asian colleagues and our operations in China and elsewhere, we were able to anticipate and take best practice and move it very quickly to Europe, and implement the best practice that we learned in China. And then when the pandemic hit Europe, we were prepared, and we were then advising our American and Latin American colleagues, this is coming, this is what we need to do. So that was absolutely key for us in learning from our colleagues around the world to just improve and anticipate what was going to happen with COVID.
More generally spoken, what impact did COVID-19 have and the lockdown have on Flex? I mean, did the situation bring you closer together in a way, or?
Very much so, Heidi. I think the impact of COVID for us as a company, and it really was that the safety and the well-being of our people, our employees, the 160,000 people that you and I mentioned, was our number one priority. So we put in place very quickly, but also with great diligence, a number of protocols and procedures to protect our employees by providing them with protective personal equipment, establishing physical distancing in our factories, doing temperature screenings. We've to date done more than 7 million temperature screenings for ourselves in our companies, so that every time someone entered a factory of ours, it was as safe as it could be. And as I said, we became very, very aware of what was going on through our China footprint. And because we manufacture, especially in Europe and in Israel, where I'm located now in Europe, what we call essential products, products that serve infrastructure like telecoms equipment or medical devices. And we had to, with the legal teams, with the operational teams, with our health and safety organizations, be very cohesive to find a plan to make sure that those operations of ours that were making these critical products for people like you and me could stay open and run, yet be very compliant with the regulatory framework and the health and safety guidelines that were put in place by the various governments. Mm-hmm. I'll take Italy, if I could, as an example, because we all know here in Europe that Italy was extremely affected. And for us at Flex, one of our biggest and first impacts in Europe was our Italian site, one of our Italian sites, because our Italian site was located in the so-called red zone in Italy, in Lombardy. And we had to rally together as a team, as a very collaborative, cohesive, cross-functional team, to make sure that this Italian site that was supporting critical infrastructure for a very big brand was able to stay open. And I'm very happy to say we had to shut down our Italian site for about 2 weeks, but we got it up and running with agreement with the government in Italy on the grounds of a very strong watertight resiliency plan that we had put in place, and very strong gold standard health and safety protocols to make sure that our people in that factory and that site remain safe.
Mm. For you as a leader, did you have the feeling that you took decisions much more faster than they would go, like in more regular times?
Absolutely, and I think that's a fundamental trait, especially in crisis. You need to be decisive, and sometimes you get it wrong, but you live with the consequences and you try again. But someone has to make a decision, and I totally corroborate what you're saying, that in crisis times, you need a leader, and you need someone who can take a stand and say, we're going to do it this way. Fortunately, we're a very collegiate, collaborative company, so you're never totally alone. But I do think the COVID period was a time where decision-making and quick thinking, yet thoughtful thinking, was critical.
Would you wish it to stay this, like, to keep it like a new normal?
I think, one of the Flex cultures that we're very proud about is there is never a normal at Flex. We're constantly changing. We're at every turn, we're thinking of new normal and never as business as usual. We're constantly challenging conventional thinking. But what I really like about the so-called new normal that we've seen during COVID and hopefully now post-COVID is I found that people rallied to serve a greater good and that people had a common purpose. Mm-hmm. In our case at Flex, it was really to save lives with the medical products that we were doing. But I think that really made a significant and radical change in how people were rallying to work together to save that common purpose. And I hope that remains for a long time the new normal.
Have you also as a company put more focus on the healthcare sector or products?
Yes, we have, Heidi. And as I mentioned, one of the areas that we're in at Flex, and it's a traditional area that we've been in for a while, is the medical and healthcare solutions business. And we make about $2 billion a year in manufacturing, designing medical devices for some of the biggest brands. And these are products such as ICU devices in the ICU room, patient monitoring systems, hospital beds. But what we saw during COVID is that there was a huge surge in demand for ventilators. And that's not something we traditionally do, but the big ventilator companies around the world contacted us to say, please help us increase our capacity, our customers' capacities in supplying ventilators to the world. And I'm very proud to say that even though Flex is, I'd say, within the top 15 medical manufacturers of the world, during COVID, we alone as a company produced more ventilators for the world than the 35,000 ventilators that all the global manufacturers in the world produce in a year. And that we did in a very short period of time, which is quite extraordinary. And it's something that I personally, and I know the company, we're very, very proud to have contributed to saving lives, basically. Yes, we did. We focused a lot, and we continue to focus a lot on medical devices.
But it's amazing how fast you put up those numbers. I mean, how was this possible?
Because I think it's our scale, it's our size, it's our scale. We have one of the most resilient supply chains in the world. It's our sense of entrepreneurship. I mean, we started as young entrepreneurs in 1969, and we're ready to meet the challenge, and we're continuously improving.
And the spirit, obviously.
It's very much part of our spirits. And although a ramp, usually takes 24 months, we boiled it from 24 to 12 to basically 3 to 4 months to build ventilators for the world through incredible cross-collaboration and spirit, passion for what we do.
So now I understand better that what you've said before, that there's no business as usual. So
there's no business as usual, and we're constantly, as I said, at every turn, we're innovating, we're thinking differently. What could we do better? How can we improve a process? That's part of our DNA.
Let's come back to you a little bit more and your core business. Let's say you are leading several teams around the globe. I mean, it's not only that you're leading like your Viennese or your European team, you have teams all over the globe, and your day has, as well as ours, only 24 hours a day. So how do you manage to do it? And what do you think is, and COVID showed it probably, what do you think is the most important thing now, like in leading virtual teams, and what do those teams need most at those difficult times?
I think, teams in difficult times, and I mentioned this a little earlier, really need leadership. And what that means for me personally is being decisive. When there's so much unknown, there's so much nuance, there's so much uncertainty, there's so much newness. As we mentioned earlier, it's really, really important to be decisive. I think it's also important to be positive, because people are scared and people are vulnerable and people are worried. And I'm not saying we paint, or I paint, a rosy picture, but I think it's important as a model to remain optimistic to show the way, and to lend a positive tone to everything that you do in leading teams, in these difficult times. And then I think the third thing that is very important is to be compassionate, is to really hone in to that emotional intelligence of that one has, to understand people, to put yourself in their shoes, to understand what are their fears, what are their vulnerabilities, what are their issues, what are their problems. Because I think in times of crisis like that, compassion, empathy goes a very, very long way. And then finally, I would say to stay connected, update people, be in touch with people. And you need that so that you can move in very dynamic times with agility and purpose. And the more you stay connected and keep people informed, the more they feel part of a larger team, and hopefully feel fueled to continue and to move on.
I mean, you are not only confronted with different cultures in your job, but also with different legal frameworks, let's say. What would you consider to be like the most important talent you have to have as a legal counsel, like you have, like a leader that leads several teams, as I said, all over the globe?
I think, I don't know if it's a talent, but one of the things that I definitely think you need to have as a lawyer is to, as I said, is to have a voice, have a view, take a stand. It may not always be accepted, but that's fine. That's fine. But I think it's really important to be able to weigh in, give a perspective, give a voice, to make a decision better. I think that's really, really important. I think another skill, especially in my role, because as you said, I have global teams, and I'm continuously working and connecting virtually. But I think at the moment, one of the biggest, I don't know if it's an art or a skill, but one of the biggest attributes that I've been focusing on is prioritization. Mm-hmm. Is when you have so many asks coming your way from all different angles, I sit down and I say to myself, Heidi, what really matters to myself? Does that matter for the company? And if you can say, yes, that really matters, that is your filter in prioritizing and doing things that have the most impact, the most value, the most sense of purpose. Mm-hmm. That's what I'd say in a nutshell.
Was it also something that you reflected on during the lockdown? I mean, it was a very special situation for us all, like also in a very personal way, because you mentioned before this prioritizing. Did something shift in your own personal mindset during those times of the lockdown?
I love that question. I love that question because I think something has shifted, and one of the things that I think personally that has shifted in me during the lockdown is I pushed boundaries. I went into areas that I never went into before. And I'll give you a couple of examples. But I did it in the sense so that I became much more real, much more authentic. I'm at home. I'm locked down at home. I haven't met any of my colleagues for the last 3 months, 3.5 months. So I was forced to become really just more real, authentic, and transcending my role as a lawyer. And I would go and push boundaries in areas that I had absolutely no experience in. For example, talking to health ministers or governments around the world as to why they need to keep us open, and raising my banner and say, we are a critical product manufacturer. And I'm not an engineer. I don't make the medical products, but I was transported with this sense of purpose, and I just push those boundaries. Or I'd pick up the phone and talk to people on the other side of the world and just check in and say, how are you doing? You didn't sound too good on that Zoom call the other day. And that, I think, is something that I did during lockdown, because I stopped and thought, how would I like to be treated? And I think this pushing of boundaries, both in your personal behavior as well in the professional behavior, helps you become much richer and much more connected with what you do and with the people that you work with. So I'd say that's what changed. I think.
That sounds good, really.
But you know, I've known to be, I've been told I'm a little pushy sometimes, but this time I really push the envelope, and I push those boundaries as much as I could.
That's good to hear. Having my eyes on the watch, but I want to ask you this last one question. How important is it for you as a female leader to have a female CEO?
That's also a nice question. It's a good one. And the way I'd answer that is that it's well recognized, Heidi, that organizations benefit from diversity. But for me to have Revati, a female CEO, it's more about her leadership and what she brings as a leader in terms of her role modeling. And she embodies a lot of the traits we spoke about in terms of decisive, positive, compassionate. She sets direction. She sets strategy. She gives hope. And one thing that really resonated with me that Revati has done, and she's only been with us for less than a year, but something that really resonates with me that she's done is she's changed our mission, purpose, and value statements. And she's redefined it by saying something very simple, which is we as a company, we're going to create products for our customers that create value. But above all, we're going to create products that improve people's lives. And that in itself shows you the values that she embodies and that our company embodies. And for me, I think that leadership tone at the top and that style is very important. And don't get me wrong, I mean, diversity for us as a company is extremely important. It's a defined goal. We have metrics, we have key performance indicators on it. But Revati being a female, for me, it's more about leadership than gender.
Mm-hmm. And you had, like, coming back to those values, you had the proof of concept during those COVID times, and everybody
Absolutely.
felt the purpose again.
As I said, we're very proud at Flex because we had that purpose. Even though we're a huge multinational, very diversified, we were focused on making sure that we were doing our bit to help save lives.
Does it affect you also that she has Indian background? I mean, your father is from India, your mom is from France, and you have like an Indian CEO and a COO coming from France, and you are like the diplomat in between.
You know, I'll tell you something, Heidi. There's an expression that I like a lot, and the expression that I like a lot is find your middle. And what that means for me is be centered, but be open to difference, diversity, be in the middle of things. And I hope through my background, as you said, my mixed background, and through my leadership style, I embody that middle. And it's great to be in the middle of having an Indian CEO, a French COO, and I feel perfectly at home.
It's like the greatest last words you could give me for this interview, Pascale. Thank you so very much. I've never heard that before, that it's great being in the middle.
Yes, it is.
So
it
I
is.
keep this in my mind and in my heart, and thank you again. Thank you to our viewers for watching again. If you have fear of missing out any broadcast of Superwoman, please help yourself. Just press the subscribe button, should be there below. Thank you again, Pascale, for sharing your insights, also your personal views on times like this. It's always, always a huge pleasure talking to you. Hope to see you soon. Please take care and stay healthy. Bye.
Thank you, Heidi. Thank you.